Dr. Blitz has ruined my career. It's time for me to pack up and go home now.
In a stunning new scientific breakthrough,
This will not go well, and it'll be a long one, so strap in.
what's all that static fuzz? That's the Oort cloud surrounding it.
Well, sort of. It's definitely not a picture of the Oort cloud, it's a mathematical model of it.
And I'm not claiming that this is a picture. This is a mathematical equation of our solar system in an image.
Anyway, the Oort cloud is better visualized as a hollow sphere with a plane passing through the middle.
The particles that make up atoms, they themselves are little spinning bits of energy.
Oh, well, no, not at all. As an example, the Higgs boson is a fundamental particle and it doesn't have any quantum spin at all. But even the particles that do have quantum spin aren't actually spinning.
And I use spinning loosely.
Oh, and also, nothing is made of energy. Energy isn't a substance that can compose things. It's one property among many that describes a system.
Mass is organized energy. If you disorganize it, you release the energy.
Oh, never mind. He was just cutting my clip short, acting like I didn't say what I clearly said, and pretending to correct me. I clearly said that was not a picture of the Oort cloud, but rather a mathematical equation represented in an image. Now, forget that it's called quantum spin, and that I didn't name it that. I clearly said I was using the word spin loosely. And finally, E equals mc squared. Now, as an example, the Higgs boson particle is the one exception out of all the other particles, in that it does have zero spin, meaning specifically it has no angular momentum, is not changed by rotation, has no preferred direction. It doesn't spin. None of the particles spin. We use the word quantum spin, knowing that things on the quantum level cannot spin like things on the classical level, because they're too small, literally. But we use classical physics terms like spin and rotation to describe quantum phenomena, understanding that we're scaling the concept of these words down, and it doesn't look on the quantum like it does on the classical, but it is the same laws of physics organizing the energy on all levels. We'll get back to that in a minute. The Higgs boson particle has no spin because it's literally the excitation of the Higgs field. And you can think of it this way. The Higgs field is water in the ocean. The Higgs boson particle is the wave. So even though it doesn't have spin, it still has wave function because it's the wiggle, doesn't spin, it wiggles, of the Higgs boson field. So it is no exception to what I'm saying because the wave function is inherent, and that's what we're talking about. That's what spin is. He says everything is not made up of energy. Okay, but on the quantum level, everything is made up of waves. And the particles themselves are little spinning bits of energy, and we use spinning loosely. But we do use it, don't we? So it's not an exception to the rule after all, it just doesn't spin. But everything is wave function. Everything is made of wave function. Everything displays wave function. What do I mean when I say toroidal vortex? I mean wave function. What do I mean when I say wave function? Well, just like this particle doesn't spin, neither does it have shape, and yet we measure it with quantum spin and can represent it with shapes. And just like the Higgs boson particle is the excitation of the Higgs field, this uses shape and speed to describe how the other particles that aren't the Higgs boson get excited themselves. And so what you see is this particle here increasing in energy or spinning faster. And each one of these little shapes is merely a graphic representation of the particle as it reaches each new level of excitation. The last one being a donut. You see, I call this sphere a toroid, and I say toroidal vortex because the faster this thing spins, the more it becomes a toroid. In shape, even. But I'm not merely talking about the donut shape, though it is visible in all these examples. The hydrogen wave function displays the same shapes as it is increasing energy as the particles do, not the Higgs boson, which wiggles instead of spins. So that's the ideal position of a hydrogen atom. It's resting. But when its energy increases, it jumps levels. And I mean the electron. We're looking at the electron cloud probability on the outside of that. The electron jumps levels without crossing the space in between. This is called quantum leap. And then you can see its energy increase again before it jumps levels. And then you can see its energy increase again before it jumps levels. It gets bigger. Now, toroidal vortex, which is clearly seen here, is wave function. And what I mean by that is, the bigger it gets, the more unstable it becomes. That's why it wants to be small. And this is the exact same relative concept as giant stars burn up their fuel faster than smaller stars. Smaller stars are more stable than giant stars. Because wave function is birth, growth, which means gaining information or energy. You reach that peak and then what happens? You start to decline. You're unstable with all of that and you start to lose that information. This is called entropy. Entropy is the disorganizing of information, essentially and in the long run breaking down all structures into their component parts. It's like when you burn a piece of wood in the fire, it releases the carbon atoms as a gas, and they're no longer organized into wood. That is entropy, disorganization. So I named a 4-part system: birth, growth, entropy, and death, or getting old. Body starts to break down. But time favors both stability and complexity, but without entropy, it could not do that. Without entropy, the laws of physics could not organize more complex structures because of this simple fact: except a kernel of wheat fall into the ground and die, it abides alone. But if it dies, it brings forth much fruit. What does that mean? It means that somehow the death of a tiny little seed somehow causes a situation where matter gets more organized than it was before. It ceases to be a seed, it begins to be a plant. At which point it takes the sun's entropy, the sun is burning its fuel, it's not actually burning, the relative terms, and releasing it to the earth in the form of photons, which the plants then take and convert into matter for their own bodies, reorganizing the entropy. But if the sun didn't release photons, the plant couldn't grow. Entropy is essential in the process. Wave function is a process. What does it do? It helps organize the matter into more complex structures, time favoring stable, more complex structures that require all kind of violent chemical reactions, quantum reactions. These look like wars relatively on their scale. Catastrophes. No pain, no gain. Toroidal vortex. Toroid only has one hole, huh? What about a multi-hole toroid? Every organ in your body is a toroid. Your kidneys pump your blood in, pump it out clean, discard the waste. Your lungs bring the oxygen in, move the oxygen to the blood and expel the waste. Your mouth brings food in, you defecate. The waste. Chewing up a piece of food is entropy so that the organs in your body, via wave function or toroidal vortex, reorganize the entropy so that you can maintain your size or grow, keep your processes going as long as possible. And you are a much more complex organism than a fruit. So I would expect a large toroid that's made of a bunch of smaller toroids to have more than one hole. That's a multi-hole toroid, made of smaller toroids that are all made of smaller toroids that are all made of smaller toroids. The cosmic mass size diagram is an algebra equation. It's from this symposium. This is not a peer-reviewed paper because it's not a paper, it's a symposium full of papers. The symposium specifically focused on cosmogenesis, stellar and galactic evolution, formation and evolution of the solar system, Earth's atmospheric and tectonic evolution, evolution of life, and hominization, using all mainstream academic sources, which they cite and quote over and over and over again. The laws of physics do not violate quantum mechanics. There is equidistance between particles and atoms and bacteria, between bacteria and man, between man and mountains, between mountains and stars. What does that mean? It means that each time you jump a distance, there's an equal gap between the distances. The laws of physics are organizing everything on every level according to the same laws, but gravity cannot count the same on the level of quantum physics. So the laws of physics use a different mechanism, namely electricity, instead of gravity. So particles and atoms do look different from stars because they're way smaller and they're not gravitational, they're electric. But it can be said via special relativity that atoms are tiny electric stars, stars are giant gravitational atoms, and men are electric beings bound by gravity. Now when I say that flat spiral galaxy is a toroid, I don't mean the flat part. I mean the donut or toroid-shaped magnetic fields in the Milky Way that hold it all together and feed the black hole. Yeah, it's a flat spiral galaxy, it's a toroid. The toroid is what produces the flat spiral part. The Earth is an oblate spheroid that couldn't exist without its toroidal structure. I'm not talking about the rocks, I'm talking about the math, the physics. You're going to say the Earth and the galaxy are not toroids, but I can clearly show you that they are. Toroidal vortex can be directly observed as life cycle.